we moved over there when I was in the 8th grade. And I was there, graduated from High Street in '59. And then I went away to college, and I just knew that I wanted to come back. And everybody had asked, why do you want to come back to Bowling Green, And I thought, well, High Street is my home.
I believe in my soul that these children today need to know where they came from in order to know where they're going. And that's what High Street showed us.
I get teary when I think about them getting ready to tear the building down. I was talking to some ladies the other day, and one of them just commented, not knowing that it meant so much to me. She said, "It's just a building." And I said, "No, honey, it's not a building. It's a lot of memories,
High Street has opened a many window for many people, many young men, and many young ladies. And they're still opening doors because even though High Street's going to be gone, as you say, High Street lives on, and it's going to live on as long as we can let it live through the memories of the school and through these
old High Street High School, you will always be, for you give us sunshine, all the world to see. I'm always thinking of you when the shadows round me creep. I'm always praying for you when I lay me down to sleep. Dear old High Street High School, I'm in love with you. High Street High School, I'm in love with you. High Street High School, I'm in love with you. High Street High School, I'm in love with dear old High Street High School. I'm in love with you.
For many years, the education of African Americans was the sole responsibility of concerned mothers and fathers, their churches, and eventually their communities. What they lacked in public money, materials, and formal institutions, they made up for in determination, perseverance, and caring. This powerful combination of home, church, and community produced an excellent environment for educating African American children. When this process of education was finally endowed with more formal institutions and support, the African American homes, churches, and communities continued to be involved. For a time, this combination of the formal and the informal created a rare atmosphere for learning. The driving influences of parents, churches, and community can be seen clearly in the history of the State Street and High Street schools in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
And when I go back and think about the rich history of State Street and High Street, I have to go back all the way to the beginning of the Academy School. And from the Academy, where kids, due to the times in which they lived, had to be transported by the river, rail from surrounding counties to have an education. And then from the Academy, we had the citizens of Bowling Green to establish the first high school. And then around 1923, probably the biggest turnaround in education in the city of Bowling Green happened. And that was the day that Dr. E.T. Buford became principal of State Street School. And with his ideas, he was able to build what I believe is a monument that will live for as long as we can ever remember, because he has instilled in us through the education, along with the staff, a belief that we can do anything, we can accomplish anything.
The State Street School was a two-story building erected in 1883 at the corner of State Street and 2nd Avenue. It had no indoor plumbing. Instead, the restrooms were in a long wooden outdoor toilet and children drank from tin cups hung on a spigot outside. To accommodate increasing enrollment, a third story was added in 1890, as well as further additions in 1924, 1929, and 1952. The gymnasium to the State Street School still stands on this corner. Plans for a new building to replace State Street School were begun in 1953.
I drew the plan, and the only change they made in the plan for the school was the library and the cafeteria. So it was kind of real good to feel that you'd done something that was really worthwhile.
The $500,000 building opened its doors to students in 1955, and at the time, the High Street School represented Bowling Green's most modern educational facility.
I remember when we moved into High Street. I was like in the 3rd grade, and we were attending State Street over on State and 2nd, and we packed our books and walked a couple of blocks to the new school.
I can remember I was 1st grade. We had to pack our chairs. And we marched through 2nd Street like little soldiers and packed our chairs to the new school.
They were proud of that school, and they did everything they could to keep it nice and everything, but it certainly made a difference in the way they felt.
Parents, the churches, the teachers, and the community as a whole all continued to support the educational environment at High Street.
First of all, High Street School was a school with rich tradition, and it evolved during the era of segregation with caring teachers, teachers which emphasized high daily attendance, that set high standards, and served as role models for students.
High Street to me was my mother and was my father. It was my home away from home. We were nurtured, we were encouraged, we were loved by the teachers and by the classmates. So actually, High Street was a comfort zone. It was a place that you were happy, that you were comfortable, and that you just felt right at home.
It showed a lot of love. People were really sincere about what they were doing. There was no playing around. One thing for sure, something that High Street offered was that once you left that school, you were ready to move to the next higher plane.
High Street also offered us protection. If you can go back into history, at that time we were under a rigid form of segregation and discrimination. High Street more so sheltered us and protected us from the hostilities that we were confronted with.
But our High Street had a high value system, high ethical standards. You slept with it, you ate with it. It was just a part of you, just like your clothes on your body.
There at the school, it was the warmest place during the winter months. See, our homes had wind coming in through the windows, through the cracks in the walls, and so the school was the warmest place in the community during the winter months. And school never closed. It didn't close for snow, sleet, hail, or rain. School was always open, and kids walked from Jonesville, from Western, on down to where High Street is. The only people that were transported, we had kids transported from Morgantown, Scottsville, Smith Grove, Oakland, and Woodburn. They were transported to High Street. But school never closed. And everybody enjoyed being at school, especially during the winter time.
The playgrounds there, how Keller's Lane used to run right into the playground of our playground area. There was kids that weren't able to come to school, they would come to the fence. And we'd try to sneak them through sometimes so they'd come over in the playground and play with us.
The children, when they came in and had their meals, they were so happy. And I enjoyed that.
The fondest memories are the men and women that gave their time and encouraged us. And when the world the nation told us that we weren't anything, that we couldn't be anything, they were the ones that said that we could be anything that we wanted to be, and they kept instilling that within us.
I would say one of the fond memories that I have was the fact that the family atmosphere of all the faculty and staff, and the respect that the students had for the faculty and for their fellow students.
And I remember when we had our senior play, you know, Mr. Moxley, well, he was crazy about that gym floor. And one of the girls in the play was a skater, and I loved to skate. So when break time came from playing with the play, I put her skates on and I was sailing around the floor. Of course, he came in and almost had a heart attack, I'm sure. Because he hollered, and I said, oh, but I'm on the outside, I'm on the outside, I'm not in the middle of the floor. It doesn't matter, he said, get those skates off and get off that floor, and I did.
Another memory I have is Miss Coley Hutchison, who is deceased now. I come from a large family, 7 of us. And you know, used to be you'd wish for things at Christmas, and the teachers would have us to put our wish list in, what we wanted, we'd write it down. And I had been to F.W. Woolsworth on the square, and they had this gun and holster and hat and spurs and everything, cowboy outfit. And I wanted it. I think it was $9.99, $7.99, something like that. But I knew I couldn't afford to get it. So every time I wrote the letter, that's what I wrote for. So I was born next door to her house when I was born. So she got with my mother. I got the set.
Mr. Buford and I used to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning on the weekend and go to Indianapolis to class. I'll go somewhere in Indiana, we go to Indiana University. That's where, and that was back, there wasn't no I-65, then there was I-31W.
Oh, Miss Moses in the library, how she kept it so immaculate. If you talked, you stayed out for a period of time. And if you had to come back, she would take, I know one instance where a girl, she put out for 2 weeks. And the girl came back in a week's time. And she said, dearie, I'm telling you right now, honey, she had the sweetest smile on her face. Now, dearie, I give you 2 weeks. And if I let you come back a week early, the other kids are going to know it. And I'll have to do them the same way. So you've got another 2 weeks. It's all the time she's smiling, she's correcting you, but she's smiling. And you knew she was correcting, but you didn't get mad.
And we tried to make sure the children felt this, that they were the most important of ever in anybody's life, that they were top priority. And nothing, I don't care what side of the track you came from, it did not matter. What was most important was those children.
This don't happen anymore. I remember the first day I was in school, Mr. Buford told me, said, now you go see every family, every home of these people on your list. And I went visiting them, all of them, and let them know me and try to keep in touch with them.
I can also remember actually going and visiting homes, because how are you going to successfully work with a child or parents if you don't know where they're coming from?
You had in the black schools the best black minds in the world, because the black person could not go into any occupation, any job. He could not do that. The best minds were in education. And because we feel that Brown versus Board of Education was because black schools were inferior and thought that black teachers were inferior. But black teachers were superior because you had the best black minds in education. And that's the reason why we could have books that were 30 years outdated, but still go to Howard or go to some prime universities and institutions and graduate.
The teachers and how they would always tell me when I would get discouraged and think that I couldn't do something, and they would always tell me there's nothing you can't do. And I decided then that I wanted to be a teacher.
And Ms. Moses' mother, Ms. A.P. Williams, when I was in her class, 1st or 2nd grade, they used to run a hotel, Southern Queen Hotel. So they would have the loaf bread, the ends that they would save, and she would bring those to school, and at recess, she would put pure honey on those ends and cut them in half and give them to the pupils as a little snack. not because she had to do that, or not because we were hungry, but because of the concern. So she knew some kids might not have any breakfast at all that morning.
In those years, teachers took a special interest in the children, and discipline was number one, along with the learning process. So if you were bad in school, your parents or grandparents, in my case, and my aunt, they knew about it before school was out. But that special care and that attention that those teachers gave to us will long be remembered.
We used to have a motto that if you could work at High Street, you could work any place, because we had a feeling that our program was the best, our teachers were the best, we were well educated, we believed totally in what we were doing.
High Street School brought a lot of pride to the community. It was a place where adults and children could together socialize on a cultural basis, as well as through athletic events. It was a haven, more or less, for the community. You know? And there were a lot of other communities, a lot of surrounding communities, which joined in some of the activities that were presented at High Street.
There was nobody that was not welcome. I mean, you know, anytime we had any activities, everybody at the community was involved. The basketball team, PTA meetings, there were always fundraising activities.
Believe it or not, after school, nobody really wanted to go home. I mean, people, they stayed around and they socialized. And it was just an enjoyable atmosphere.
The neighborhood schools were great. If my sisters and I acted up on the corner, coming or going, before we walked in that door at home, Mother knew about it, because there were neighbors that cared. You understand? And the time we may have thought they were meddling, but really they cared. And like they say, it takes a neighborhood to raise a child and a community to raise a family, and we're getting away from that. We don't have neighborhood schools anymore.
The people that lived around the school, they were people that kind of looked out for you. If you were late, or if you done something you hadn't been doing, like kids used to, or if there were going to be a fight, kids, would get together, just a fist fight. This was just fist fights. They'd get together. Well, if that parent seen you, was going to fist fight that day.
But High Street School, to me, was basically the Afro-American community of Bowling Green. It was the center of education. It gave us a sense of belongingness, being able to relate to a common cause. And basically that common cause was education.
Not only was it a school, but it was the benchmark, along with the black churches in the community. It was a place to where all the activities of the community were held.
But we stood for something, and this community, that black community of Shake Rag, it was called at one time, stood for something, and there's some good positive things come out of that community right there between the blocks of State and 2nd to over to High Street.
If the child didn't produce at school, you felt very comfortably calling or going to that home and talking to those parents. And then you got some support.
I can remember parents acting as substitute teachers during that time, coming in, sitting in the classroom in the absence of a teacher.
They were concerned, even though they were in poverty, a lot of them, but they was concerned about the children's education because they wanted the children to do better than what they did.
We had homeroom mothers that were there to help out the teachers with anything that she needed, especially holidays and you know, school parties and that type of thing. And those parents were like active all year long.
Church played a big part in the black kids' life. In some counties, there in the schoolhouse, it was the school during the week and the church on Sunday. And I remember that they used to have revivals at the school sometimes during the week. But we find that our teachers were educators during the week and Sunday school teachers on weekends. And our principal was the principal during the week, but he was the pastor on weekends. So you had a very big connection between the school, the religious life, and the school life of the average black family.
I can remember having a teacher, several teachers, but the Barlows I remember for certain, that on Mondays you would recite a Bible verse at the beginning of the school year. It started with an A, second week was a B, and we went all the way down the alphabet, and they had to be memorized, not just come in and read them out of the Bible. And also we got extra credit for attending church. You know, that Monday we would come in and someone would ask show of hands of those who attended Sunday school, church, or whatever, extra credit. So that influenced a lot of people that would not normally be involved in church to go, because Lord knows some of us need all the extra credit we could get.
I guess I would be remiss if I didn't say that one of the fondest memories that I have was the excellent sports programs that High Street had, which every time they played, they filled the stands to capacity.
From the early beginning, High Street, and now of course I have to always go back to State Street, had a very strong tradition in sports. When I was a very young kid, I remember the stories that were told about the Mustangs, State Street Mustangs, beginning with Charles Bradshaw during my time. But prior to Charles Bradshaw, there were outstanding athletes like the Reverend Samuel Ryder, Mr. Yost. They tell the story about Professor Yost. He's a graduate of Fisk University. They tell the story, and they were true, about a young man who could play football. He played better than Jim Brown back in his day. And then coming right on down the line, we come to the 1940s. And I doubt if there's another high school in the state of Kentucky can say that they have a national championship. And the State Street Mustangs at that time, in 1944, coached by J.S. Omby, were the national champs. Now, they were national champs of the Negro League at the time, but it was national. It just wasn't local. It was up to the time that we integrated the schools. They were not allowed to play, you know, with the whites in the city. But we did play in the playgrounds and the communities. And when we integrated schools in the 50s, we integrated basically the athletic programs, and we began to compete with the white teams, although we were not integrated with the students.
Mr. Moxley will go down in history as he's already been elected to the Western Kentucky University Hall of Fame as one of the better high school coaches in the state of Kentucky. Not only was he a teacher on the basketball floor, he had excellent talent. He encouraged all of us to be a participant, and through that participation and through that leadership that he provided us, I think it gave each one of us the strength to pursue our respective careers in later life.
One big contribution that High Street made was to produce solid citizens. They taught us respect, responsibility, self-control, and discipline. they reinforce the values of our home and of the church. And with the home, the church, and the school working together, what they produce were solid citizens. They produce men and women that lived above crime.
We have graduates of High Street that have become doctors, lawyers, in various aspects of the business world, professors, and you name it. And we've had outstanding people to have come out of High Street.
High Street also produced community leaders. Many left Bowling Green and became leaders in other communities, along with leaders in this black community.
I attended college with some of the graduates of High Street, and they were well prepared for college. They had taken courses that were not offered at some of the other segregated schools around the state of Kentucky.
You know, they're just scattered all over, and they really produced good quality people and instilled in us that whatever we wanted to do, wherever we had to go, that we could do it.
The education that was learned, the trades and the groundwork that was laid enabled a lot of those people that come from out of High Street's doors to go out into the community, make a life for themselves, establish businesses, and put back into the community what the community had given to them.
Black individuals, school children from surrounding counties attended High Street because that was the nearest block school. Upon graduation, of course, those individuals went back to their respective communities. Many have been successful, as well as some moved from Bowling Green to other locations. But the education and the foundation that we all received at High Street is something that you can't pay for.
The last high school class to graduate from the High Street School was the class of 1965. Bowling Green had begun the process of integration. With the high school closed, High Street became an integrated elementary school.
I was there for the last day of the high school, and I felt like the world had come to an end. What brought black folk together was the black school, and once it was no longer there, then we don't have the unity that we did have.
We cried a lot that day, and it's kind of hard even to talk about it today. It was not a good day.
It was sad in the fact that we knew that this would be the last time, other than reunions, that we'd have a chance to be together. Normally you would think that everybody would be excited, elated about being out of school. But I would venture to say that during the last day of school, nobody went home, including the students. You know, we just stayed around and we reminisced, and there were tears that were shed, and we just felt that it was a big part of us that was being lost. But we realized that progress had to be made. We realized that integration was here to stay, and that was the relief of the closing of the school, knowing that we would have a chance to compete with others on an equal basis.
Well, when we got the word that they were going to close, everybody was speechless at first. I mean, we just couldn't believe it. You know, I thought I was going to be there forever. And it was just a shock, and we didn't want it to happen. And of course, we did everything we could to keep it from happening. But then we just told ourselves, well, it's for the best. I mean, everybody's going to go their own way and do their own thing, and not to forget where we came from.
It was a sad day, but we knew that day was coming, and we had outgrown that school, and to better suit the situation with education-wise, it was better to integrate, even though a lot of us would like to stay there. But I'm honored that I was in that last class.
Just hated to see the changes being made, but we know why they were being made. You know, the whole step was towards progress, equal education, and you know, those kind of things, which in the end I often wonder if the whole move was towards equal education, because I really felt that the education that we got at High Street was top of the line.
Finally, in 1973, the High Street School closed its doors to all students.
In particular, I guess one thing that I'll always, it'll be in my heart, was the day that we closed the High Street Elementary School down. I wasn't fortunate enough to be principal of the high school, but I was principal of the elementary school. And we had to close because of the fact we had lost students, and which was the main reason. And we had an assembly. And at that time, we brought all the students together. I said we, I really didn't know anything about it. It was something that the staff was doing. And they brought the students together, and they asked me to come in, and I didn't realize it. And I walked into the gym, and at that time, I got a standing ovation, and it made me feel good, because then I realized what I had been told all of these years, that prepare yourself by going to college, coming back to Bowling Green, making a contribution. And when I was able to walk in that day, and even though we were closing the school, I had felt that I had accomplished that particular goal. We felt good at that time. Although they were closing the school, we knew that we were going in different directions in the city of Bowling Green, and it was our goal that we would go and become a part of all the schools in the city. And hopefully those things that we had learned at High Street, we would be able to carry some of those same goals and principles to the other schools, and I think we did.
The High Street School building was bought by the city of Bowling Green and turned into a recreation center. In 1992, the building was acquired by Commonwealth Health Corporation and replaced with a state-of-the-art center constructed adjacent to the new Roland Bland Park. The new recreational facilities bear the name of a figure familiar to anyone associated with the old High Street School, Dr. F.O. Moxley. Finally, in 1999, succumbing to age and weather, the old High Street building was brought down.
As I mentioned earlier, there are many memories. Mr. Buford, the principal, ran a tight ship. All of us, as we go through life, will remember Mr. Buford. But High Street School, even though the school building will no longer be there, those memories will last us all a lifetime. And I wouldn't change anything that I came in contact with at High Street for nothing in the world.
And it was primarily due to the fact because we had to take so little and make a lot from it. And I think we owe a lot to those old pioneers, in addition to Walker Wilson and all that group. And we can come on down to the modern times, to the J.S. Ombes and the F.O. Moxleys and the D.W. Moses and Amanda Barlows and Irene Barlows, and the list continues.
Memories are one thing that lasts forever. You can never tear those down. If you hold those memories close to your heart, the school will be there. And whenever I walk past 200 High Street, I will see High Street School there.
My name is Herbert Olin. I was the last principal of High Street School. I made sure that the students, teachers, and those that came in contact with the school knew about the High Street School spirit. I now close the cover on the illustrious history of that school. Demolition of the building brought an end to the visual as we knew it, but the members would linger forever in the hearts of the school's graduate, teachers, and those that were able to witness the school's spirit personally. We now begin a new phase with a memorial built in the school's honor. The building of the structure will allow others to know that High Street School played an important role in the lives of the Afro-American community. We thank Commonwealth Health Corporation for its spirit of service to the community. The memorial will sit on the site of the former school in the heart of High Street Medical Complex. Its grounds will now provide for mending broken hearts and bones to the citizens of the area. May the memory of High Street School through this memorial and the documentary cement mutual respect for the contribution of all cultures. Dear old High Street School, you're still the world to me. May your spirit ever remain in the hearts of all as we look to the future of providing service to all.